12-year-old shepherdess, and I'm really excited to bring to you a very special episode today. First of all, I've got my wonderful sister Sarah with us behind the camera. Say hi, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
We're going to my friend Joanne's farm today. She raises wool sheep, and we're just going to talk to her about her sheep, what her journey is in the fiber arts, and just where she kind of wants to take things from here. And I'm really excited to introduce you guys to her and her sheep and her farm and her products. I'm so happy you guys are here to join us on this journey, and let's go. So I've known Joanne for about 2 years now. She has been inspirational. I really didn't think through when I first got sheep how much you can do with their wool. And she takes her wool clip up to the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival every year so she can drop it off with a local mill and get it turned into roving and yarn. And so that's dedication. It just goes to show that Georgia wool can be made into something very nice, a very marketable product. So I'm really excited to talk to her today and let you guys get to meet her, because I think that many Georgia wool growers are really just under the radar. Not a lot of people know about them. Most people think about, when they think about wool growers, they think about people in the Northeast area, or they think of people in the Midwest or out in California. And we're down here trying to do our thing too. So let's get to know Joanne and Georgia sheep a little bit more. So that used to be Kenny Rogers' old place. It's now a Smithsonian Farms. It's an event place you can rent out for weddings and stuff. But all the old brick buildings, all the old oak trees. It's a beautiful place. If you want to buy a haunted mansion, there you go. Only millions of dollars. Comes with 10 acres. 10 haunted acres.
And maybe Kenny Rogers' ghost.
Yeah, that's very possible.
Maybe. We don't know how much he loved it to want to go back to it, but you never know.
So welcome to Georgia Rustic Yarn, and this is my friend Joanne Maki.
Hi.
The proprietor here of Georgia Rustic Yarn. And Joanne, so how long have you been farming here on this place?
Oh, I've lived here close to 30 years, and I got sheep after 5 years, so probably right around 25 years or so. I got my first ewes and started it and have been doing it ever since.
Excellent. And did you have any farming experience prior to that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So growing up, I had horses. We had all kinds of different animals, and then because I was interested in going to vet school, I had some background in animals. Yes.
Gotcha. And so you chose sheep.
Yes.
What was your reasoning behind that decision?
It wasn't the first choice. When I wanted to have a farm, I grew up with horses, and I was going to have a horse. And then I wanted to have a horse farm. And then I found out how expensive horse farms were. And that's when alpacas got to be really popular. So I went out and I looked at alpacas, and there was no way I was going to be able to afford an alpaca farm. That's when they were selling for $8,000 $10,000, $20,000 a piece.
Right.
And I said, okay, well, maybe I'll do alpacas later, but in the interim, let me look at goats and sheep. And so I had moved here, had goats. The goats helped clean the pastures and eat all the kudzu and all that out. And they did a great job. But then after that, they started tearing up the fences, eating my barn, escaping, doing what goats like to do.
Doing goat things.
Goat
yes.
stuff, right? And they were cute and no longer.
Yeah.
So I had a friend of mine say they were going to go buy some sheep. And I had never heard of Gulf Coast natives. And they explained to me that they're smaller. They're not the big meat breed sheep. They're intelligent. They can browse. And what really caught my interest was that they're parasite resistant. They're not parasite proof,
Right.
but they have really good health and good mothering. And I said, well, sheep might be easier than goats to keep the place mowed, the fences clean. And so we got 4 of them, and then 2 years later I bred them, and we had some lambs, and then that's kind of how it all started.
And you just answered my next question, which was, what breed of sheep did you go with and why?
Yeah, Gulf Coast.
Gulf Coast.
Yeah.
And all the reasons that you just described for why you got Gulf Coast are the reason I got them too.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the parasite resistance,
Yep.
not proof, like you said, but resistant, which is a huge help.
Yes.
And the fact that they are a wool breed
Yeah.
that is hardy in this area.
Yeah.
And so were you a fiber artist before you got sheep, or?
No, I knew how to knit. And my mom was a watercolor artist, and
Okay.
so I had always been exposed to arts growing up, and arts and crafts and doing all that kind of stuff, Girl Scouts, 4-H, all that. So I'd always had an interest in crafts and knowing how to knit. I had no idea about spinning, but after we had the 4 lambs that first year and we had them sheared, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with the fleeces. And I said, well, if I want to make yarn or if I want to do any kind of arts and crafts with the yarn, I need to learn what all about this is. I just jumped into it. And so I got a spinning wheel for Christmas and did some terrible spinning at first.
Everyone does. It's unavoidable.
But then decided that I like the dyeing,
Mm-hmm.
and I really enjoy the fleeces and selling the raw fleeces. And I do make my own sweaters and gifts and that kind of
Right.
thing. But yeah, when I found the Gulf Coast sheep and the fact that they could produce good wool, I decided that's kind of where I wanted to stay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, can we go meet the sheep?
Yeah, we can go meet the sheep.
Excellent. Let's go do
They're
that.
hungry, so I think they'll show
They'll
up.
show up.
If they're not hungry, they won't show up.
My sheep were terrible. They saw the cameras and they were like, "We are not performing."
Well, these guys are hungry. I didn't feed them hay this morning, and they knew there's like something's up. So I think we can probably you can see the sheep.
Excellent. All right.
Okay.
Let's go check them out.
Okay.
I know for you that growing a very good wool clip every year
Yes.
is a high priority. Did you
Yes.
start out that way, or is that something you work towards eventually?
Initially, having the sheep, I noticed there was a difference in the fleeces, and so I was attracted to that because I was looking at the fleeces, trying to decide what to do with them, and quickly realized that you have to have certain qualities to be a hand spinner's fleece, and that you sell fleeces to hand spinners at a premium. So that was kind of my drive, was okay, fine, you can sell almost any sheep if you want as a meat sheep, but I wanted something that would be a little bit more, and that I could actually then, it's so easy just to sell a raw fleece because you basically just shear the sheep,
Right.
clean it, skirt it, throw it in a bag, and if you have the right place to sell it, sell it. And to me, that was the quickest and the closest to actually having someone meet the sheep and get to know the sheep and get a fleece from the sheep. So then I got into yarn, because then what do you do with the fleeces that don't sell?
Right.
And so that's kind of where I went. As after I do the clip and I sell to hand spinners and I compete in different fiber festivals, anything that's left over I sort, and then the stuff that looks like it'll be good enough for yarn goes to yarn.
Okay.
And then everything else I can do locks and bats and batting and all that. But I try to, and it's hard because I've got about 40. How do you churn through 120 pounds of yarn? I mean,
Right.
of wool.
Of wool, yeah.
And I try my best to keep the fleeces clean. And I think that might be Angel. Is that Angel? Yeah, that's Angel. She was another bottle baby. And I want to make sure, I mean, it's so easy to get a barn full.
Yeah.
And you can't really store. If you're going to do fleeces, I found mice get into them, they get dirty. So I try to have everything turn over every year and not store stuff in the barn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I totally understand that. So once you started on that journey,
Yeah.
then obviously you're going to start breeding for better wool quality.
Right.
And so what is your process for building a flock that has the wool quality that you're looking for, but still trying to meet those parameters set by the
That's the tricky part. So that's the tricky part.
set by the Gulf Coast Native Society.
So not only do I do ram, this is not a sheep.
No.
Not a sheep. Not a sheep. That's just my good old peer, who's worth his weight in gold. I keep ewe lines, and then I also keep ram lines. Because I've had a closed flock, I don't want to do inbreeding.
Right.
So my number one thing I look at is really where am I with those different lines in the characteristics that I like. So if a hand spinner wants to have something that has luster, has at least 3 inches, over time I've kind of been breeding the longer wooled sheep to have more luster, and then I do still have some that are quite spongy, and you'll get motorcycle noises.
Yeah.
There's nothing
Hold,
you can do about it.
please.
That's all a part of living at the intersection.
Yep.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah. So I to me the selection process is I don't want to just do wool. So I don't want anybody getting really leggy. So that's one of the things. Or I don't want their ears getting too big. Trying to be close to what the Gulf Coast standards are for Gulf Coast, even though they're a variable breed. Just good conformation, all that comes first. And then if I have any kind of concerns about the fleece is uniformity. So in Gulf Coast, part of the fleece will be really fine and another part of the fleece won't be. And I've tried to breed for consistency, but that's the one thing I really continue not to have show up predictably is consistency. But I can, if I have a mom or a dad with luster, most likely the baby will have that luster. And most all my sheep now have at least a 4-inch staple, because the ones that haven't, I've either sold those off or I use their stuff for batting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So same. It's like you want the wool that you want, but with the breed that you have, you know, you've got to take some consideration into maintaining what that breed is meant to be.
Right. So I do, if I find a lamb or a ewe that doesn't have parasite resistance, I don't breed.
Then don't breed, yeah.
And to me, and that's the number one thing. And I've had people actually say to me, you shouldn't be selecting for wool. But I'm like, wait, I'm telling you I'm selecting for wool after I select for the characteristics for the sheep. Because you want a sound sheep that's going to be able to lamb easy, hold the babies full term, produce a lot of milk. And all those characteristics determine whether or not you have a hard life as a shepherd.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to be pulling babies. I don't want to make bottle babies are cute, but I don't want a lot of bottle babies.
Well, and that's something that breeders of sheep that aren't known for parasite resistance are starting to do.
Yeah.
They're looking for that trait first.
Yeah.
And then, you know, going, okay, well, does it have all the other traits as well that I want to continue with this line?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think that that's going to be really important in the long run.
Yeah, I do too. They're kind of a multi-purpose sheep, even though I've been breeding them for wool. I think it's a great idea to use their genetics and go either way. If you want to do a wool sheep or a meat sheep or a homestead sheep that does everything, I think that they're a really good option for people just looking to get into sheep.
Oh, yeah. Well, and especially with Gulf Coast natives, they really are kind of the jack of all trades sheep. People are using them for wool, for meat, for milk.
Milk, yeah.
And so I think that having different flocks who focus on those different things, we're going to have that genetic diversity.
I hope so.
That goes across the board.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of exciting thing that goes with having this breed.
Yeah.
They may not be the biggest sheep out there.
Right.
But they are definitely
most diverse.
Most diverse, yes.
Yeah. No, I'm happy that the Breeding Association is now online and has registration online, and we really, I hope, leads towards finding different sire lines and having more intermixing of these local populations so we can stay diverse.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And then, so obviously, you're never really done improving, because you always have a goal that, you know, you may reach a goal and then you're going to have a goal set beyond that.
Right.
Where are you wanting to see your flock's wool go from here? Like, you've already got what most people would consider exceptional wool, especially from Gulf Coast natives, but I know shepherds, and they're always wanting to get to that next goal.
It's consistency. I mean, to me, that's the I've bred now and tried to get luster and fineness, and I can almost say in some of them I've got too much fineness. It has to be hand processed. So I'm really wanting now to start saying, and it's not just everywhere, it's in a particular area it's just too fine. Yeah. And so that's what I'm looking to do is for consistency. And two, volume, because if you're in a fiber show, and I talked to somebody about this a couple weeks ago, you may have an absolutely fantastic fleece, but if it's only 2 pounds and you're up against a similar fleece and it's 5 pounds, it's going to be hard for that judge to put a 2-pound fleece over a 5-pound fleece. So that's just because that gives the person purchasing the fleece or whoever is buying volume counts, and it's just part of the scoring. So that, to me, it's okay if you're going to be selling at festivals because you've got people that are interested in the quality and they don't mind just getting a 2-pound fleece. Right. But if you say where does it need to go, that's trending towards each sheep producing more quality wool. Gotcha. So, but I think consistency over. Once I'm happy with everything else, I would say consistency is my next goal.
Excellent. Okay, so do you have any favorites?
I won't say favorites because every time I do something happens to that sheep. That is farmers learn. You know, the minute you say, oh, she's my favorite, or isn't he fantastic, he's my favorite, that's the one that does something stupid and dies. So I don't say favorites anymore. I never do. I try not to pick out a favorite. Of course, the ones that consistently win ribbons, it's hard for me not to say, oh, I really like you. Well, you know, this is one I really, really like. But I've just, over time, told myself any of these could have an accident or anything, you know, there's always things that happen. Yeah. So I like them all.
As the saying goes, sheep wake up every morning looking for a way to die.
Yeah, but not as much as Gulf Coast.
No, they're definitely more hardy.
Yeah, they definitely are. But no, I like them all. They're also different.
They really are.
Also very, very different. That's one of the things that, and you never know when a baby's born what it's going to look like.
Right.
I mean, I had a horned ram born this past spring.
And you've worked really hard.
5 generations of polled, and boom, he shows up with a fantastic head of horns, and so now he's in Alabama making more babies. But you never know what color they're going to show up. I mean, the fleece is all. I don't have any color in my flock. I don't have any black or brown, but when they show up, you just don't know.
Yeah. Oh, who do you see?
He says, I am just going to look important.
Yeah. I'm doing a job.
Well, he's management and she's the actual action committee. So he'll find something and start barking, and then he sends her to go look. But he's getting old now. He's like, do I really want to go? You going to get him, Mason?
Go get him?
No, I'm thinking about it.
All right, well, let's go look at some of your products.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you hand dye all your yarn and your fibers, right?
Yes. So I get the fleeces that I send off, I get them back as roving. And the roving is either blended with alpaca like this one, or just plain. And then I'll pick 1 or 2 fleeces and break them out, and just as I'm dyeing, for example, when I'm dyeing, this is lichen green, there's dye left in the pot and I want to quench it out so I don't end up throwing any dye away. Right. And minimizing the amount of stuff I put down the drain. So this is just the afterwash. I'll just take a raw fleece actually and let it just simmer in that, and as it's simmering it gets the lanolin and most of the dirt out, and so that's, to me, that's just great because then you can use that for whatever you want.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so this is,
and because you're putting it in there raw, it's gonna
get different colors.
You get different shades of that green in there.
Right. So a lot of it is towards the tips and starker. So when you use it to make yarn or hand spin, it makes a real pretty blend. And then this is just this is just batting.
Batting. And so this is quilting batting, right?
Right. Yeah, I've got quilting batting, and then I've just got sheets of batting.
So you've got something for everybody here.
I have a little bit of everything. Yes, I do. Yeah.
Spinners, felters, quilters, knitters, crocheters, weavers.
Yeah. Oh, and I didn't bring down, I do have some warp that is a single.
That's right, yes, that we were going to play around with. She has a really awesome loom.
that I don't know how to use. And she's going to teach me how. Because I only know how to set it up, and then I know nothing. But it was one of those acquisitions I couldn't turn down. I think that happens to a lot of us.
Yeah, and it just so happened that you've got that perfect yarn.
Yeah, so I've got that yarn all ready to go. I just don't know how to do it yet. So I love the way this one turned out. Even though the actual exhaust was cranberry, it was like now it's strawberry with purple ends. So that's one of those happy
strawberry
surprises.
Shortcake.
Yeah, with purple ends.
With purple ends, yeah.
But yeah. So no, I've got a little bit of everything. I do sell my yarn in Athens at Revival, and then I also have a partnership with her name's Melissa of Knitting the Stash out of New York, and she has a farm store. But I really don't have time to do an Etsy shop or anything like that. So usually I'll just do direct sales, or hopefully with working with you and having stuff happen that way, so people find out about me. And because I love doing the festivals, but I don't do a whole lot of festivals. I just do a few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, these are absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Especially, I'm in love with that green. That is.
You like that?
Gorgeous.
That's a good old lichen. Do you want me to? Where did I put that raw fleece?
Oh, it's behind you here. Yeah. Let's look at that.
And the reason I wanted to bring this one out is people, when they go to wool festivals, say, "Oh, I'm not going to buy a ram fleece because they stink." It really depends on the ram and the fleece and the age.
It smells like a fleece.
This is a ram fleece. It won second, I believe, in the Gulf Coast class. It's at least 5 pounds. Is he 5? Do I have my card in there anymore? No, the card's out. I pulled the card out. But to me, don't discount. Don't discount the idea that a ram's got a stinky fleece, right?
I mean, this fleece is so clean.
Yeah, and so it's
just a little bit of work to get those tips, and you're good to go.
Yeah, and so it's really, I mean, to me, it's
just a little over 3-inch staple.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, so I'll sell. Once I go through the festivals, the ones that I don't sell, I'll sell them by the pound. Mm-hmm. So if people don't want to buy an entire fleece, I can sell it.
And this is a huge fleece. Do you know how much? And this has been show skirted. Obviously.
Yeah, this has been show skirted. I think he was 5.5 when they came off, and then I think it's 5 now.
Yeah. Wow, so you didn't even have to skirt off that much for a show.
No, this is Gandalf. He's very clean.
Oh, of course it's Gandalf. we're definitely going to go down and see the boys here in a minute. Okay. Like Gandalf and Sparrow are,
and they're actually.
I'm not going to call them my favorites.
No, don't call them your favorites.
But I really like them.
Exactly. They just happen to be right there.
Oh yeah, there they are.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're going to head over there next.
Okay.
With growing wool in Georgia,
yes,
it's definitely more of a challenge,
right,
than growing wool out west or in the Northeast. So what are the biggest challenges for you, and what steps have you taken to overcome those?
Okay. I was thinking how I'd answer this question in a way that it would make it easy to remember. The 3 challenges are parasites, predators, and protein. So 3 P's. First of all, you have to have predator protection in the South. Coyotes are crazy bad, and once they find your flock, they'll come back and come back and come back. Now that I have 2 Pyrenees, when I had 1 Pyrenees, I still lost sheep. Now that I have 2, I'm okay. Then the other one is parasites, of course. Even though they're parasite resistant, like we're in a drought right now, I know that's stressing them out. I want to keep an eye on them, see if anybody gets bottle jaw. I do Famantia at least twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. This spring was super, super wet, and the parasites just went through the roof. So I dewormed some sheep that I probably would not have dewormed otherwise. And then last but not least is protein. If you're going to make a fleece, I love the idea of everyone says, well, they can browse and they don't need to eat a lot and they can, live off the land, and that sounds all great and wonderful. Especially in ewes, if you have a baby on the way, possibly twins, you're asking that ewe to mobilize a lot of her energy and nutrients to make those babies, and then you don't feed her enough, you're going to have breaks in your wool. I mean, it's a lot to ask of a sheep. Our heat is a stressor, our rain is a stressor. So for me to feel confident that I'll have good fleeces to sell, I'm willing to go ahead and feed them grain and hay and keep a pretty good metabolism going. So they have a good chance to produce that. And people go, how do your fleeces get to be so big? Or why are your fleeces so nice? And if you think about it, it's what you put into the sheep. So keeping them where they don't have to stand out in the rain.
Right.
Keeping them mud away from the barn. They don't have to lay in manure. All the things of good husbandry, which also will help you keep parasites down, will all contribute to a good fleece. And so that, to me, if anybody, just even raising sheep, I mean, if you're going to try to raise a sheep and sell it, or you're trying to do wool, or you're trying to do meat, they have to have protein. And the idea of, well, you can just let them browse, or you can just let them eat off the land. In some really nice situations you can, but in the South it's just a real challenge.
It's really challenged.
It's a real
Especially
challenge.
Since we'll have 3 weeks, 3 months of rain,
Right.
and then we'll have 6 months of no rain,
Right.
and then we'll have 6 months of just rain.
Right. It's so unpredictable.
It is.
It's so unpredictable. So yeah, to me that's, if I was to summarize it, I would say those are the three biggies.
Right.
And then with this breed, luckily they're good moms, but again, selecting for sheep so you're not working yourself to death and having to pull lambs and having to deal with parasites, and just picking good, healthy animals to breed. I think that in any breed that makes sense.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are specific challenges to Georgia
Yeah.
in particular, but that's the same as anywhere else in the world. They're going to breed for animals to produce what they need in their area.
Exactly. And I think too in the South, I mean, we'll never be like west of the Mississippi and out west, they have so much range and the ability to run really big flocks. And we just don't really have that
here, yeah.
opportunity. So I think a lot of the homesteaders are interested in these sheep because they'll do that pasture rotation of animals. They'll have the cattle go in, and then the sheep go in, and then the hogs go in, and then the chickens. I mean, to me, there's a lot of wisdom there. If there's going to be a need to have your food be locally produced, I mean, those kind of homesteading principles I think are really worthwhile to think about here in Georgia.
In Georgia, yeah. And I want to say you said you have over 40.
I have 40 total, and then I keep a couple of rams on top, so around 42, 43. But right now I've got more rams than I usually have, just because I've got some really nice fleeces in these.
Yeah.
And so I'm
really nice
leasing these guys out on occasion to
Yeah, because
yeah.
it's great to be able to keep that genetics going.
And I hate the practice where they basically say, I'm going to buy a ram, I'm going to use him for breeding, I don't really care what he looks like, I'm just going to go ahead and have lambs, and then I'm putting him in the freezer. Well, if you're doing meat, that's great.
Right.
If you're doing fleeces, you may be robbing yourself of some good genetics. And I mean, I have a ram that I've used off and on for eight more years, and he's got phenomenal fleece. And just if I'd used him that 1 year, I would not have had a lot of good lambs out of him. So it's just different. I think everybody has to look and see what works for their situation, but that really works for me.
What would you say to fiber artists to encourage them to try using wool from rare breeds? Because there does seem to be some resistance to that through in the community.
And what's available. I mean, I think it's just what people have gotten used to. Everyone says, oh, merino, it has to be worth the price. And it's a lot of marketing. And I think just because there hasn't been other breeds available, and so no one knows about them.
Right.
But if you take the time to educate yourself about them, it really just depends on what you want to do. I think there's a lot of good diversity in Georgia, particularly with all the different people raising Jacobs and Gulf Coast, and I mean, everybody's raising a lot of different breeds, so why not just explore and see what works for you? I mean, some fleeces will felt better than others, some are better for making yarn. I think the variety of it really just depends on your area. But when you order offline, everyone goes, oh, merino. Well, that's just because there's so much of it.
Yeah. And most of it comes from Australia or New Zealand.
Yes.
So so what would you say to fiber artists who are looking for Georgia wool? How should they go about it?
I would say get to know.
You got that right.
Because we had to be on board for that. I would say they need to, look at Georgia Sheep and Wool Growers. That's one source.
That's the website to, they have a website.
They have a website, and under resources, then you can actually look at people selling sheep, but then there's also a directory of what actual materials they have available through their farm. And then I would say if you're interested in a particular breed, just search that breed online, and many times the registries have those locations where people are raising those sheep. So you can go there from sheep to location or from location to sheep, depending on what you want. And I think too, if you go to fiber festivals, like I was at the one in Asheville, over 100 and some fleeces easily. And Maryland is 300 and some fleeces, and I think there's a minimum of 10 to 15 breeds you can put your hands in each bag and learn about and talk to people who know and say, look, I'm interested in felting. What should I look at? So I would say go to fiber festivals, play around on the web and look, but get your hands in the different fleeces at the fiber festivals. Okay.
And then for fiber people who are interested in getting into the fiber arts, what advice would you have for them to get started?
Oh gosh. That's a good question.
It is a bit of an open-ended.
There's so many things you can do.
Right.
I mean, it just really depends on what draws you and what you have an interest in. I mean, I really, to me, when I started dyeing, I thought, okay, this is something I love doing. I mean, the time flies when I do it. If you like, I don't like to crochet. My sister-in-law loves to crochet. I like to knit. She hates to knit. I mean, it's just so personal. And I would say just go to what draws you, and then find somebody who's doing it and start asking questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, everybody I know that's involved in sheep and in fiber arts, we love to talk about it.
We're not quiet about it.
No, we have no problem talking about it. So
We don't keep stuff to ourselves.
no, no. I would definitely say that's the way to go. But I mean, if you're interested in raising sheep, then talk to somebody who's already got them and find out what they do and if they recommend it or not. And then just, to me, there's all kinds of possibilities. And everybody I've met, I mean, everyone I've met has been so helpful. I mean, everybody wants everyone to succeed, particularly in Georgia, because it's not easy.
Right.
And if you're raising sheep, then it's a completely different world than if you're raising wool. But then there's also the community of people that will help those people interested in raising meat sheep. So I really think if it's something someone wants to do, it's a great hobby, good for kids. I mean, the kids love the lambs, and then they learn how to deal with animals. And as long as they're supervised well, kids and sheep get along really well.
Right. What is it? A hobby for a craft for mom, a hobby for dad, and fun for the kids.
Oh, I haven't heard that one. That's a good one. That's a good one. I like that.
So what would you say to encourage fiber artists to seek, that are from Georgia, to seek out Georgia-grown wool products? Like, what is their incentive to do that?
It's going to be hard for them to find, really. And it's word of mouth, I would think. And like I said, the Georgia Sheep and Wool Growers website will show you vendors of people who are interested in providing.
Yeah.
I don't know of any real outlet that would be, if you Googled it and said, I want to buy only Georgia origin wool, it's not there yet. I know there's the fiber sheds that are starting around the country, and those are trying to say, okay, if you're interested in California wool or if you're interested in New England wool, but it's not there yet.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a book online, and I want to read it a bit more, and they said that the old way of doing the sheep industry is changing, and that it's going through a transition. Well, it's been transitioning well now for more than 10 years easily, and it's going to be niche markets. I mean, and if you want to buy local, and if you want to say, okay, I'm willing to pay a premium because I know that this doesn't come, it comes from the U.S. or it comes from the state, or to me, that's kind of just how it all starts, and it's word of mouth.
Yeah, it's been, I think it's been more difficult for local craft artists to get things like this out to other artists.
Oh, I agree.
Than it's been for, and I know that the struggle to get local produce to become popular, that was a struggle enough, and I just feel like this is more of a struggle. But there is this pride that you can feel from holding up an item that you go, I made this from local wool. This came from 10 miles down the road, 20 miles down the road. This is Georgia grown. Yeah, and I think farmers markets are kind of a way to go, and the holiday markets. I think that's kind of where you'll find people that are willing to do the festivals and spend the time to pack up and set up tables and do what they need to do to sell their wares. I think farmers markets are a great opportunity, and Christmas markets for knitted items. And I would ask, if you see knitted items, ask them, where did you get your yarn, and is it local, or did you buy it off the internet, and do you even know that it might not be? Walmart. It's Walmart yarn. It always is. Lion brand.
You never know. Have to ask.
Yep.
But I've had people say, I can't pay for this. This is too expensive. And I said, that's okay. It's your choice.
It's your choice.
If you really would rather do acrylic and you want to have something you throw in the washing machine, that's not what this is.
Yeah.
You want something that a baby can have and not worry about it and go right in the washing machine and it'll last forever, don't do this.
Right.
Do something else.
Do something else, yeah. And that's just it. Like, the fiber artist community is big enough that you have all sorts. You have people who will never buy local sourced material. And then you have other people who almost specifically seek that out. Like, that's really their niche and what they want. So there's something for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So let's see what you got.
This is the one that's not all mine. The sleeves are mine. But the body's not, so the sleeves are mine.
So this is from your sheet?
Yeah.
And what's the body from?
Madeline Tosh and Malabrigio on top.
Boy, that's pretty.
Thank you. I haven't, as you can see, I haven't really finished it yet. I'm still working on the ends. And this is all mine.
Ooh, that's really nice.
That's the one I have on Instagram. That was the Shave 'em to Save 'em. I guess we should mention that.
Oh, yes.
They had the challenge, the Shave 'em to Save 'em challenge.
Boy, that's really pretty.
And this is now too small for me. This is one of the very first things I ever did. That's all hand spun. That's when I was just getting, and look at all the hair. This is when I didn't know you needed to skirt your fleeces.
Oh.
So I was not skirting my fleeces.
So you were using all of it.
I was using all of it. So it's a bit scratchy. And it's too small for me now. But you can still see, isn't it interesting how the hair will not take up the dye.
Well, do you remember which sheep it was that you got?
No, that was when I was just lumping them all together and sending it all off and having it washed and come back in a big bag, and then I started spinning it. And then I realized it's like, oh, where are these hairs here? Oh, I was just supposed to skirt those out. So I call it a Nordic sweater because it's kind of like a Viking sweater. It's really scratchy. So it just makes me laugh. So I was learning as I did it, but it's all hand spun. So,
yeah, it's beautiful.
So, but yeah, it's definitely got, it's not a soft sweater. This one's soft. This one I did not hand spin. This one is actually, it's hand dyed.
Hand dyed.
So you can see how it's got this little subtle stripes in it. And the color's
so beautiful.
Yeah, the color's called Twilight. But the, yeah, so that's fun. And then this is what I like to do is take, like I got these at a sale and I didn't have anything to go with it. And I thought I'd do the sweater, but then I couldn't figure out what I wanted. And then I went upstairs and I just matched my yarns to that.
What, yeah.
And then that way I can, kind of like having your own yarn.
It is, isn't it?
I can do whatever color I want, whatever way I want. So yeah, I'm pretty spoiled when it comes to that.
So if people want to follow you on social media, you're
Instagram.
on Instagram.
I don't do much of Facebook because it's overwhelming. I mean, Instagram, I've got to hang on it, and so it's at Georgia, but it's G-A, not spelled out Georgia,
Right.
G-A Rustic
G.A.
Wool.
Okay.
And I do have on there that if they want to get in touch with me, message me, and then I'll get back in touch with them.
Okay.
I don't have an Etsy store. I have the remnants of a website which I need to update. It's www.rusticwool.com, but I don't. It's just out there. It hasn't been updated. And then Revival is where I sell my yarn, and then the Shave 'em to Save 'em. Definitely mention that. You can go online and they have that directory. So if people want to do rare breeds and help conserve rare breeds,
so that's the livestock.
That's the Livestock Conservancy Shave 'em to Save 'em program, and my information's on there too.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah.
Along with some other Georgia wool growers.
Oh, a lot. There's a lot on there.
Yeah.
And that's where if people want to look at rare breeds of sheep and get some really cool ideas and see what's out there, that Shave 'em to Save 'em program is really good.
Yeah.
Okay. You get the little passport and the stickers. And this was the challenge. They wanted everybody to knit a sweater using a rare breed wool, and then they get online and they share it. And they had some lessons where you could learn how to, like, a couple things that were just amazing to me. Like the person giving the lesson was saying, okay, you made your swatch, but the swatch is too tall and too skinny, or it's too fat or too wide. And then she said, well, you need to go up a pattern size, down a pattern size, change your needle size. I mean, she was doing all that as part of this challenge, giving information, so it was really good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Joanne, thank you so much for having us out today.
Yeah, thanks for doing this.
Showing us around the farm and talking about your wool products and where you're going with everything.
I'm glad you're doing this. I mean, I really think there's a lot of resources in Georgia. I think there's a lot of artists in Georgia, and trying to get the word out. I think YouTube and having videos is a really good idea. So thanks for doing it.
You're welcome. All right, well, that will do it today, guys. Thank you so much for following us on this little adventure into Fiberland, and I hope you guys all have a great rest of the day. Y'all take care. Bye.
Bye.